She did everything right. She wore bright clothes. She stayed on well-lit streets. She called her boyfriend. She let someone know where she was. She wasn't walking through a dark alley. She wasn't taking risks. She was simply walking home. But the man who took her wasn't a stranger hiding in the shadows. He was a serving police officer. On March 3rd, 2021, Sarah Everard vanished on the streets of South London. For days, the public searched, the media speculated, and her family held on to hope. When the truth came out, it shattered a nation's trust and sparked a global outcry. This is the story of Sarah Everard, and how a badge, meant to protect, was used to destroy. Before her name became a headline, Sarah Everard was simply a woman living her life. She was 33 years old, working as a marketing executive in South London. She was intelligent, thoughtful, creative, someone who kept in close contact with her friends and family. Sarah grew up in York, studied at Durham University, and had recently started a new role at a digital media company. She was ambitious but grounded, the kind of person who sent birthday cards early and always asked how your day was. In short, she was just like any one of us. She lived in the Brixton area and had recently spent the evening visiting a friend in Clapham, a safe residential neighborhood. It was Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. Around 9 p.m., Sarah left her friend's house to walk home. It was a route she knew well, about a 50-minute walk through familiar streets. She wore a bright green raincoat and white beanie. She carried her phone. She stayed on main roads. She even spoke to her boyfriend while walking, a quick call just to check in. At 9:28 p.m., she sent him a message. "On my way home." That would be the last time anyone heard from her. When Sarah didn't come home that night, her boyfriend grew concerned. She wasn't the type to disappear, especially without a word. He tried calling again and again. Nothing. By the next morning, her friends had reported her missing. A search began, quiet at first, then louder, as her face began to appear on posters, in WhatsApp groups, and across social media. The message was simple: "Please help us find Sarah." Within 24 hours, the case became national news. She was described as cautious, predictable, not someone who would go off-grid. The police began gathering CCTV footage, camera by camera, street by street. They traced her final steps across Clapham. The last confirmed sighting showed her walking alone near Poinders Road, just before 9:30 p.m. Then, nothing. She was gone. And London, especially its women, began to fear something terrible had happened. When Sarah Everard didn't come home, alarm bells went off almost immediately. Her boyfriend tried calling her again and again. Her phone rang, then went silent. Messages went unread. Her friends confirmed she hadn't contacted anyone since the night before. This wasn't like Sarah. She was reliable, careful, always in touch. The fear began to build, not just worry but dread. By Thursday morning, March 4th, Sarah was officially reported missing. Police in South London began a search. At first, it seemed routine, a missing persons inquiry. But as they retraced her steps, they quickly realized something was wrong. CCTV footage from local shops and residential cameras showed Sarah's final route. She had walked along a 205 Poinders Road, wearing her green raincoat, white hat, and headphones. She looked calm, normal. There were no signs of distress, no indication she was being followed, no sudden movement or struggle. She just vanished. The last image caught her walking near a traffic camera at 9:30 p.m., and after that there was nothing. Her phone had stopped transmitting data. Her bank cards hadn't been used. She hadn't accessed her email, called anyone, or posted on social media. The story hit the news within 48 hours. Flyers were posted across Clapham, Brixton, and central London. Her face filled Twitter timelines. Celebrities shared her story. Police officers knocked on doors, appealed for dashcam footage, and combed through every available lead. But there was something deeper happening too, something emotional. Sarah's disappearance struck a nerve. Because she had done everything right, she had taken a safe route, she had worn visible clothes, she had called someone. She wasn't intoxicated, she wasn't alone in an alley. She was simply walking home, doing exactly what women are told to do to keep themselves safe. And still, she was gone. Within days, the story had gone global. The phrase, "she was just walking home," became a rallying cry, printed on posters, trending on Twitter, echoed in interviews and vigils. Because Sarah wasn't just a name in the headlines, she represented something bigger, the silent fear so many women carry with them every time they step outside alone. And with every hour that passed, the hope that Sarah had simply gotten lost or gone off the grid began to fade. Something far more sinister was starting to take shape. As the days passed and no sign of Sarah emerged, police expanded the investigation beyond South London. Teams reviewed hours of surveillance footage from traffic cams and building security systems. Every frame of her known route was examined. Then they found something, a white Vauxhall Astra spotted on camera near the area where Sarah was last seen. It didn't belong to a local resident. It wasn't familiar to neighbors. Investigators ran the plates, and what came back changed the entire direction of the case. The car was registered to Wayne Couzens, a 48-year-old married father of two, and more disturbingly, a serving officer with the Metropolitan Police, not just any officer. Couzens worked in the Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Command, an elite unit tasked with guarding foreign embassies and government officials. When police realized the car belonged to one of their own, they moved quickly and quietly. They didn't want to risk alerting him. On March 9, 2021, just 6 days after Sarah went missing, they knocked on the door of Couzens' home in Deal, Kent. He was arrested on suspicion of kidnapping. Later that same day, the charge was upgraded to murder. Across the UK, the news hit like a shockwave. A serving police officer, someone whose job was to uphold the law, was now suspected of the most unthinkable crime. A man entrusted to protect the public had allegedly abused that trust in the worst way possible. As investigators searched Couzens' home and surrounding areas, they discovered clothing, equipment, and phone records that placed him on Sarah's route at the exact time she disappeared. His car had been traced driving from London to Kent, with a route that aligned eerily with her phone's last known signal. And then the worst was confirmed. On March 10th, a body was found in woodland near Ashford, Kent, more than 50 miles from where Sarah was last seen. Dental records would later confirm what everyone feared. It was Sarah Everard. She had been missing for 7 days. As the investigation unfolded, detectives began to piece together the horrifying truth of what happened to Sarah Everard on the night of March 3, 2021. Using mobile phone data, surveillance footage, and automatic number plate recognition systems, police mapped Wayne Couzens' movements in the hours before and after Sarah disappeared. What they uncovered was premeditated, planned, and terrifying. Earlier that day, Couzens had finished a shift at the Metropolitan Police and drove from his home in Kent to London, where he rented a white Vauxhall Astra. He stalked it with handcuffs, a police warrant card, and his Met Police issue belt, not for duty, but for a plan he had created in secret. That night, as Sarah walked home through Clapham, he spotted her. And then he used his authority, the badge, the voice, the uniform, to deceive her. During COVID-19 lockdown, police officers in the UK had the power to stop and question people for breaching public health regulations. It's believed Couzens used this law as a cover, stopping Sarah under the pretense of a COVID-related offense. Witnesses later reported seeing a woman being handcuffed on the roadside by a man identifying himself as a police officer. She wasn't struggling. She wasn't resisting. She believed she was being arrested. And that's how he got her into the car. From there, he drove her out of the city, more than 80 miles away, toward rural Kent. In the early hours of the morning, Couzens ended her life, then tried to cover his tracks. Over the following days, he returned to the area where he had left her body. He bought petrol. He burned her clothing. He disposed of her phone. And in one final cruel act, he hid her remains in a builder's bag, left in a wooded area near farmland. Sarah was found a week later, and even then, he denied everything. But the evidence was overwhelming. When these details came out, public anger exploded. Because this wasn't just a crime, it was a betrayal. A betrayal by someone in uniform. A betrayal by the very system women are told to turn to when they feel unsafe. And the most devastating part, Sarah trusted him. She did everything right. She followed every rule. Wayne Couzens was charged with kidnapping, rape, and murder. And from the beginning, there was no real question of his guilt. The evidence was airtight. His lies had collapsed. The truth was unbearable. In June 2021, Couzens pleaded guilty to all charges. In the courtroom, the details of the case were laid bare. Sarah's final moments were recounted. How she was deceived, restrained, and driven away. How Couzens used his position of authority to fake a legitimate arrest. And how none of it was random. It was planned. Prosecutors revealed that Couzens had spent weeks researching how to carry out an abduction. He had browsed disturbing websites, shopped for the materials, practiced. This wasn't a moment of madness. It was a calculated crime. In September 2021, the judge handed down his sentence. Life imprisonment, with no possibility of parole. This was not a common sentence in the UK. In fact, it was only the second time in British legal history that a police officer had received a full life term. The judge called the crime devastating and tragic, adding that it undermined the trust the public is entitled to have in the police. The reaction across the UK was immediate and emotional. Women everywhere were shaken. Because Sarah had done everything right, she took precautions, she followed the rules. She didn't put herself in danger, and yet, none of it protected her. It wasn't just the horror of what happened, it was who did it. A man with a badge, a man with authority. A man the system had failed to stop, despite earlier complaints about his behavior, including previous allegations of indecent exposure that were never fully investigated. Vigils were held across the UK. In Clapham Common, near where Sarah was last seen, hundreds gathered to honor her life. But even the vigil turned controversial as police moved in to break it up due to COVID-19 restrictions, a move that sparked even more public outrage. The phrase, "she was just walking home," became a rallying cry. And Sarah Everard's name became a symbol for every woman who had ever felt unsafe, unheard, or dismissed. Sarah's death led to national conversations about misogyny in policing, violence against women, public safety, and systemic failures in law enforcement oversight. The UK government pledged reforms. New safety measures were debated. Trust in the Metropolitan Police was deeply shaken and would take years to rebuild. But no reform, no sentence, no speech could bring Sarah back. She was just 33. She had a life, a future, people who loved her, and she should have made it home. Sarah Everard did what so many of us do every day. She walked home. But the man who stopped her wasn't a stranger. He was someone she should have been able to trust. If this story moved you, leave a comment, share your thoughts, and let us know what you believe needs to change. Subscribe for more real true crime stories, and click here to watch our next case, one that's just as shocking.